slammed at work, and he's just finding he's not having time for the committee meetings anymore. So he's actually going to resign off the committee, but he's agreed to stay on to the end of the month, which is hopefully by which we will have made some sort of decision or be close to making some type of decision. So I appreciate him staying on, and we will, tomorrow we'll start putting messages out on social media, on the website, and so forth, trying to get a fifth member to join the committee. So I want to let everybody know about that. And Hugo, if you want to say anything, go ahead.
Like I said, I just want to appreciate it, especially you, Bruce, at me allowing me to participate in the infrastructure study group. And I know whatever decision that gets made here moving forward, I'm going to fully support, because I just know how important the roads are, as well as ditches for our small community. And I know all you guys will do the right thing, regardless what people think, good, bad, or indifferent. So I'm in support with whatever you guys decide, in the future. So I'm going to vote yes, regardless what's on the ballot. So.
All right. Well, we have to figure out if we're putting something on there and then what to vote yes on. But
right.
Two small steps, but
yeah, we'll miss your input. Obviously, you have a job that actually is pretty related to what we're doing. So.
Yeah. I didn't realize how much more I'll be doing with with the county road commission now. Oh my God! Now the weather's nice. They're moving 1,000 miles an hour, so and I got to do the same. So.
That's good.
Well, we
appreciate for all of us, yeah.
Yeah.
So. Anyway.
Okay. So the first thing I think we need to discuss is what, just to kind of get a sense of what everybody's feeling is towards whether or not we want to put something on the ballot. Obviously, COVID has hit, which is having an economic impact. So and I don't need to go into hash out, what that impact is. I think everybody's very aware of it. I mean, the good thing is it seems like, at least from the people I talk to in Lathrup, it seems like most of them are, in positions where they're still working, which is good. I think everybody on this call is still working. So, so I guess my thought is, and we'll just go around the horn, but my thought is I'm kind of leaning towards maybe we should put something on the ballot. I don't know what that will be. That will be the next thing that we would have to talk about. And if people don't want to do it, if the economic downfall is having a big impact on people and they can't swing it, then they'll vote no, and we'll move on from there. But I kind of my thought is it's we're losing another opportunity. We lose another year. Don't do something. But so let's go around and see what everybody else's opinion are. I'm just going to go based on my screen. So Mike, why don't you, Mike Keenan, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I agree with you. I get it. It'd be nice to have more information on where we're headed as an economy, before making this decision. But I really do think we should put something on the ballot. Just we went the extreme plan, right? To do everything last time. It was shot down. I totally get it. But I think if we can at least make some progress at either like a plan 2 or 3, or something else that maybe will come up would be worthwhile. And again, if our sense on the fears of our residents that they just don't want to commit to anything right now until they know what's going on, and I'm sure they'll vote no, and we'll have to look at it again in the future at some point. But I agree with you. I hate to miss the opportunity, because we don't have. It's not like we can just do this every month, right? I mean, there's only so many elections, so I'd hate to miss the opportunity to make some type of progress on the roads and the ditches. So.
And I guess the other thing too is that if let's say we totally miss the mark. Let's say we decide to put something on the ballot and the economy just goes, let's say we go into a full-blown, depression, people will just vote it down. All right, Joe, you're mute. I think you got yourself muted, Joe, but You're next on my screen.
Carpe diem. I say we seize the day. And I actually think we should put something on the ballot. We've been having the discussions. We've had minimal support as far as the citizens coming to the meetings, but they are aware that this is something that needs to be done. And the longer we push it out, the worse the roads are going to get. So, you know, I say we put something out there on the ballot. I still say I like the middle of the road option, which is number 2. I think that would sort of appease the residents. My first choice is number 1, though.
All right, we can talk about the plans, you know, later in tonight, but let's do this. So, Hugo, what are your thoughts?
Like everybody else, you know, we don't know where we're going to be going down in the road, you know, and having something on the ballot would be, you know, the best idea for the city. And missing this opportunity, regardless, would be a failure on our part not to put anything on. And kind of like Joe, I mean, I like Plan 2, but Plan 1 might be the way to go. That's just my personal opinion. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Same consensus.
Mike Nunya?
Am I still muted? No, I'm not.
Oh,
You know, it must have picked up from my phone a Gmail account. So that was a Gmail account that I have on my phone.
Yeah,
That's why it wouldn't log in on my Yahoo account. So
then we didn't admit you right away because we thought you were a guest.
Yeah, we thought you were another resident we didn't know about.
Oh, well, you know, I tried to get in. First, I tried my phone, and then I turned it off. But I was trying to get in on my computer, and I was using the Yahoo email that, you know, I figured it must have been the correct email because she sent it to me, you know? So, I don't know. I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't get in. I guess I probably need to create an account.
Yeah, it looks like that might help.
On my computer, because my phone probably just picked it up when I originally downloaded Zoom, probably, I guess. Anyway, so what is the date that we have to decide to put something on the ballot? We're talking about the November ballot, is that right?
Well, right. So for the November ballot, I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but it's mid-August when we have to have the official ballot language completed and turned into the county and the state, I believe. But kind of working backwards, you know, we have to get, you know, we have to present it to City Council. City Council's got to approve it. You know, we would have to get the ballot language drawn up. You know, through our legal consultants. We'd have to meet with the bonding consultants to get the actual millage rate and payback tables and so forth. So there's a lot of work to do. So hopefully what I was kind of hoping was that by end of June we could get to a point where if we decide to put something on the ballot, get to the point where we know which plan that is. Or like Hugo said, it might be one of these plans. We might modify it, but get to the point where we kind of know what we want to do, and then we can use the month of July to have the meetings with the lawyers and the bonding agents, get the language and the financials squared away, and that gives us a little bit of time to present it to council and get council to approve it.
Right. If we did the first option, something like that, we wouldn't need a bond agent. Is that right?
I'm just thinking, right. So we wouldn't need it for the Headley piece.
Right.
And we would need it for I think we would still need it from the public safety millage. But it would be a pretty simple effort, basically.
Right. Yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. It's just, I was just trying to figure, and I figure you probably have to vet the dollar cost. You need to nail that down a little bit more.
Yeah, and
And
the reality of it is, if we get down this process and something major happens, again, go into a depression or there's a second wave while we're doing all this work, we can always just stop and not put something on the ballot. But,
Right, yeah,
I think,
right.
something
I think we
goes
should
really.
shoot for June.
So when does something officially become on the ballot? That mid-August timeframe?
In mid-August when we
All
turn
right.
it into it's kind of interesting just from what I learned last time. I mean, we actually have to turn it into the county as well as the governor's office. So the governor's office has to approve it as well, which was kind of a surprise to me last time. I wouldn't think that would be something we'd have to do, but we did. But yeah, so it's that mid-August date. That's the date to get it on the election. So if we're working through the bonding process and we're in late July and, there's a huge market crash or something like that, we can just stop. I mean, that's so we do have some, what's the word, cushion, I guess, even if we do move forward. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike. Go ahead.
No, if
Other Mike.
the other Mike. Okay, no, I was just wondering if if council approves it, so we make a recommendation, council approves it, and then all hell goes to the handbasket. Is it council that actually has to say, change their mind, if you will, and say we're not going to put it on the ballot? Or
Yeah, I think it would have to be council because once they approve it, it moves.
Okay.
Once the city turns the language into the governor's office and the county.
Okay.
So yeah, so it would they would have to. So it would be out of our hands to. I didn't think of that. It'd be out of our hands to some extent, but we could always make a recommendation.
Yeah, I'm sure they would take it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
The other Mike, go ahead.
I don't remember actually what I was saying, I guess. But yeah, I think we should move forward with something. I think we just need to discuss what that would be, especially since there's some outs that we would have if something were to happen. So
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that takes us now to the hard part, which I think is probably going to take us more than the rest of this meeting to do, is figuring out what plan or modification of the three plans that we have there, do we want to put in? So I guess actually, you know what? I didn't hit. I'm sorry, Salim. You do have any thoughts on this?
Well, I agree with what you guys were saying. I always think we should give it to the citizens, the residents, to have that choice to vote on it or not. So I would put it on the ballot for sure. And if give people a chance to vote. If they don't want it, then they'll vote no. So I agree with that.
All right, and Cheryl, you're muted.
There you are. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, there's a need to find a solution, and it's a question of, what is an option that the residents are going to find acceptable. And so this seems to be reasonable and might as well move forward. And as you indicated, there are steps along the way where the council can decide to hold back should, circumstances change in society.
Yeah. Okay. And the interesting thing too is just from getting all the Michigan Municipal League and SEMCOG and all those other emails that we get all the time. I mean, cities are moving forward, with all sorts of millages, library, public safety millages, road millages. It doesn't seem to have deterred, the cities from at least trying, in this August and this November. So, Scott Ringler, any comments?
My only comment is you still, even if you went with a bond issue, you still have outs. They're unlimited tax bond obligations, which basically means, if the economy tanked, you just wouldn't go and purchase the bonds. You could wait a year or two and purchase them bonds. So you do have a little bit of time and outs on your side.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so sorry I jumped the gun a second ago. So it sounds like our consensus is pretty much that we do want to put something on the ballot, and then the hard part again is going to be be figuring out what. So, not quite sure how we approach this. I guess maybe why don't we start off by just going around and having people say what they think about the three plans, or which one they might, prefer, and I'll just go in the reverse order. So I'll just start with Mike Nunya.
But can I ask a quick question first?
Sure.
So do you have a sense for what came out of the town halls on what the residents prefer? No, not enough.
Yeah, so I was going to ask the same question. Yeah, the town hall or the survey that was put out. I know it was very minimal participation, but I mean.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with the participation in that. I mean, I understand it. It's a little harder to reach people right now just because of the whole shutdown, but was pretty disappointed in the turnout. Unless there was a flurry of survey responses that Cheryl hasn't sent to me yet, you guys have pretty much the latest information. I mean, I think it was at our last meeting, I said, there were 10 responses that we had, and 7 of them were for Plan 3, which was the long-term plan that fixes most of the roads. But again, 10 people is not a statistically significant.
10 out of 2,500 or whatever we have. So.
Yeah. So I think what we're just going to have to do is just try to come up with the best solution on our own. And, I'm sure I can guarantee you whatever solution we come up with, there are going to be people saying, well, we didn't have a chance to give input. But, we've invited people to the our in-person meetings that we had, and, we tried to do these town halls. Obviously, COVID didn't help, but, people had a chance and still will have a chance to provide input, along the way. So, but that's, as Salim knows, that's the life of being an elected official. Everything you do is wrong, but to at least some group of the population.
But Bruce, that's with the COVID pandemic and people being sheltered in. That's the reason why we should have had enormous participation. No one could go anywhere.
Yeah, you would think. I was hoping that.
Yeah, I always say, and during these times, what else are you gonna do?
Right.
There's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I thought the same, but obviously it wasn't the case. So. So sorry, I should have said that. In my mind, I was thinking we really didn't get any valuable input, so I was just moving on. I didn't think you guys can't read. So. All right, so let's go back to Mike. Mike, what are your thoughts on the plans? Is there one that you prefer? Let's start the discussion there, and then we'll just give everybody a chance to talk, and then brainstorm beyond that.
Well, I was just kind of looking through them again. I guess of the 3 that are there, although I mean, like I've said before, I would prefer something of about 5 years, maybe 5 or 6 years. But I think of the 3 that are there, I'd prefer the second one. It's kind of more of a guarantee that things are going to get done, and that if something were to happen with the economy.
Actually, do I should ask this too. Do I need to review the plans, or does everybody feel like they've got a sense of what they are?
Detail-wise, I probably don't have every detail that you put a lot of work into it, but I mean, I think I got a good sense from reading them from our multiple meetings and reading them on what they're all about. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like the second one is it's 10-year 3.75 mils, right? Plus the cost of ditches.
Again, only to those people that have the roads done, correct?
Right. And there would be a stipulation in there that if you didn't have your ditches done, you wouldn't get your road done. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean that's. I think we need to have some type of stick because, again, I'm speaking from last November's perspective. Council was pretty strong on the idea that, if we're spending taxpayer money, we should be getting the full value on that money. And by not doing the ditches, it's diminishing the value of the tax dollars that we're spending. Now Scott and I had a conversation, and the question was, well, what if their ditches, aren't that bad and they don't want to do them? And so my response to that was, well, if they're not that bad, it's not going to cost them that much, so why wouldn't they want to do them? But yeah, I mean, we've got to have some sort of stick. I don't think most streets would, try to vote down the special assessment, but it could happen.
So what would, I mean, if you picked that and you had to spell out what the projects were going to be, and then you didn't do one of those projects because that happened, could you move on to a different project?
Yeah, I think what we would do is in the detail, similar to what we did last time, is we would. I mean, I think let's say we went with Plan 2 the way it is, so we're saying we're going to do 7.5 miles, across various categories of road quality. We would have to decide what roads we recommend, for that process or for that project. But in the ballot language, we would probably word it, to do 7.5 miles of road. And not give, we wouldn't give road specific, so we would have the flexibility to make changes like that, if we had to.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously I would, if we decide to go that route, we would seek the advice of our city attorney just to make sure there's not something that we're not thinking of. But I have talked about anything that as we've been going through, actually since way back, that's anywhat controversial or seems like there may be some issues with, I always run by him, and I'm pretty sure I ran that by him and he didn't have a problem with it. But again, we would, if we finalize something, he's going to look over everything, so. All right, Hugo, you want to chime in?
Well, like Joe, I was looking at all three plans, and I think, going with Plan 1 might be the best approach, just because it's a shorter payback. It's a smaller, I guess, bite of the burger, I guess you can say, compared to Plan 3, which is the longest plan. And I think the lowest mill is correct as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Are you talking Plan 1?
Yeah, Plan 1.
Plan 1 is actually, well, I mean, technically it's the highest mills because there's a 2.7.
Oh, it's the highest mills. Okay.
There's a 2.7 mills of public safety, and then
I think Plan 3 was the lowest mill, right?
Well, Plan 2 is.
I think 3 was the same as 2, but just longer.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, Plan 1, depending on how, I mean, realistically out of people's pocket, it's 4.8 mils. But again, part of that would be a Headley override, and those 2 mills are things that are mills that we've already chartered to be paying. We're just getting a tax break, so it's the elimination of a tax break. I don't know how much that eases the pain if we still pay those 2 mills, but it is on a actual millage basis, that's the most expensive.
Okay. Oh, that's right. It did have the Henley override in it on 1.
What's that?
It did have the Henley override on Plan 1, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, I think now that after you said that, I think maybe Plan 2 might be the best way to go, to be honest.
Okay.
I think it's more cut and dry, to be honest. But that's my opinion.
Okay, Joe?
I still like Plan 1 because it gives you a combination of options, so to speak. And again, if a portion of it doesn't pass or doesn't get approved, it doesn't eliminate you being able to do any road repair, at all. and then if I'm not mistaken, it also reduces the public act dollars, the Act 51 dollars.
Right. Well, all of the plans will help us out in that regard. It's just a matter of to what extent it helps us out. So with Plan 1 being a 10-year, where we're raising money for 10 years, every year we raise $850,000. That's going to help us out a lot, for Act 51 purposes, because we'll be able to bank that money for other projects. For the major roads and for the local roads, we would use it to pay for the non-road improvement expenses like salting and paving and capital expenses and so forth.
And also for the Headley, is that a permanent rollback or is that a temporary rollback? Is that something
we would
have to vote on again?
No, so we would ask for, we did check on the legality of that, and we can do it. I think Scott said we can actually do it up to 20 years, but we would be asking for 10 years. So
Okay.
for 10 years, Headley wouldn't apply.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I like the hodgepodge. That's what I like to call it, the hodgepodge of solutions there. I do understand that option 2 is the safest. And so those are my 2 choices. 1 is my first choice, 2 is my second.
Okay. Mike? Keenan?
Yeah, I don't hate any of them really. I mean, it's all well thought out, and thank you again, Bruce, for doing that. I think one from this confusion of the voter base, and if one passes, one doesn't, or they both don't pass because people don't understand it, would be kind of a risk to deal with. I've always thought, just again, more from what I've heard from residents over the last one, that 3 was probably the best because it's shorter, it's a lower millage. I think people, if we do it right and actually, execute on that right, that going back to the well, so to speak, especially if the economy was better, would be easier to do than going with a 2. But 2 or 3, I'm okay with.
I'm not sure. You may have had those backwards, because 3 was the 20-year one and 2 was the 10-year one,
yeah.
7.5 miles.
All right.
So,
No, yes, I did have them flipped then. So sorry about that. So
your
yes.
preference is which?
Well, in that case, it'd be 2. Like it's shorter term and lower millage rate. And like I said, I think the residents may respond better to that. And if we do well, going back either at the end of 10 years or even before that, if the economy is good, that might be something we could do to continue on, even though, because I know it's not addressing everything that we want to. And the only other, and from a personal note, the only, the ditch program, which I'm not necessarily against either, but since we have a rain garden, I don't want to have our rain garden like removed, because I don't think we have a problem. We don't have a huge amount of water buildup, or anything else personally. But I'm not an engineer that knows that. But I would not want to see our, we put a lot of both human effort and money effort into our rain garden. So I'm hoping that we could actually work through that. And I know there's a handful of other residents that have rain gardens too. So
yeah. But, and I think what we would do is we would recommend the same way we had done it. Again, and it's not just up to me, it's up to all of us. But
right.
For the November election, what we had recommended was that we do that on rain gardens on an administrative perspective, because there's some of them are done right, some of them are done incorrectly, and the ones that were done correctly and weren't impeding water and working as designed, shouldn't need to be pulled out, whereas those that were where people just threw in a bunch of plants and didn't take the appropriate steps.
Yeah, we did it. We thought right, because we had Oakland County Extension Services do ours. So so I think we're good. So, but like I said, that's just my own personal concern. I mean, I'm not gonna stop the whole process because of that, but I'm sure there'll be opportunities to argue that if that comes to that. So that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I guess my thought would be probably 2 or 3. My concern with Plan 1, as Mike said, is that I think it's a really good plan. I hesitate that the voters are going to understand it. I think it's complicated. I'm not so concerned about the risks of one passing and the other one not, because we would still get a significant project every year. But I think it's a hard sell, and then I think people would, based upon comments I heard from the last election, I think people would really focus a lot on the fact that it requires a council resolution, and even that council resolution is not binding that those funds be used towards roads. I don't think that's in the real scheme of things that would be an issue, but I think for voters, I think they're, would think that there's a little bit of conspiracy or, it's not certain, and people right now want certainty. So that's my knock on Plan 1. I guess if I had to choose between 2 and 3, I kind of like 3, just because it does do, over 4 years, we would have a great road system, but it does have a 20-year payback, albeit significantly less than what we had last time. So that would do a large percentage of the roads. So that would probably be, I would probably lean a little bit towards that one over Plan 2. But Plan 2 I think is good as well. My major concern with Plan 2 is, it only does address about 28% of our local road system. So I worry that, you've got 75% of the residents who aren't going to, get a benefit from it. I think probably a fair amount, maybe even half, would probably vote for it. I know I would vote for it, even though I would be on the list of people who wasn't getting a benefit for it. But not all. I think we cut down our potential yes votes with Plan 2 just because of that fact. But I do think it's a good plan. And like Mike said, we could always come back and ask for another hit for remaining 8 miles of road that would be bad at the end of 10 years, or probably a little bit more, because some of the good road would go bad. But so 2 or 3, probably leaning towards 3 over 2, but that's my thought. Salim?
I agree. I like 3 as the best plan, just because it does a lot more, and you get a longer payback, so the cost per year isn't that bad. But I like 2 as well, but I kind of think the residents will go for 2 over 3. That's kind of what my feeling is, just because it's a shorter time period and it's a lower cost overall. It's a smaller project, or smaller plan. But although I like 3 more, I like 3 personally, but I think 2 is going to be the one that would be more able to get passed. That's what I think. I think 1 is a little too complex, and people will, like you guys said, other people said, I think people will be either confused or not understand it, or just kind of wonder why there's so many pieces to it. So that's my thought. So given that, I'd probably go for number 2, because I think that's the one that would get passed.
Okay. Cheryl?
I would prefer any plan that incorporated a Headley override into it. So.
Yeah, but the thing is if we did the Headley override, it would be used towards roads. So I don't know that helps you out much.
But I think it's something worth considering, regardless of the option.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I
know people don't. When you say, it's an elimination of a tax break, as you put it, Bruce, right? And people don't really look at. They look at the bottom line and what they're going to pay, and I don't think, and even through all this stuff, and I've learned quite a bit. you know, that whole thing is confusing as all get out as well, right? You know, with the Headley override and, you know, what it's done to cities, and it's just very hard for people to, I think, grasp that concept, right? So.
All right, so let me ask this. I know I know Joe, you said Plan One was your favorite. How could we throw out Plan One as an option, or would you fight for that one to stay versus Plan Two, which looks like it might be the more favorite, or possibly Plan Three?
Well, the way it looks right now, it's like we're at the eye doctor, 1 or 2, 2 or 3. And
Well, I guess let me ask what is your draw towards Plan One?
mine was also the Headley override.
Okay.
And the question is, and ultimately, you could do the Headley override regardless as to whether or not the citizens voted on it, correct? That's something that council had an option to do.
Right. So council could decide, you know, depending on, you know, what happens with the budget, you know, as you know, it's hard to, we can't predict whether property values are still going to go up while the economy is going bad, but you know, property values are our main tax source. So if those start going down, and even if they keep going up, we're headly, so our millage rate continues to go down. So that's something that council, if we start having, you know, some budget tightness, which, you know, depending on what happens with the state shared revenue and the, you know, Act 51 dollars that we're supposed to get, you know, we could have some tightness. And that might be one solution that council may come up with to get out of that tightness, regardless of what we do here
Right.
for the road.
So with that in mind, knowing that that's an option that's on the back burner, I would vote to throw out 1 and go for Plan 2.
Okay, so does anybody disagree, or does anybody feel strongly about eliminating Plan 1 from our quiver?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So let's throw that one out then, which leaves us with 2 or 3, and it seems like most of us are okay with 2. I mean, there were a couple of us who were kind of leaning towards 3, but you're right, Salim. I think 2 is a little more likely to pass. So if we just for purposes of discussion, let's say we went with Plan 2. What do people think? Are there things that we need to tweak with it? You know, so I mean, let me go over the details again, since they're probably a little more familiar to me than the rest of you guys, since I've kind of lived it for a while. So basically, this is the one where, you know, so we've got rehab roads. So actually, let me step back. So this one is going to address only asphalt roads. So that's for starters. Right. Concrete roads were more expensive to deal with, so we only focused on the asphalt roads. And of that, it was 4 miles out of the 6.6 miles that need 1C rehabilitation, 3 miles out of the 4 miles that required full construction, and then we were just going to do a very, very, very small amount of gravel road. Total project cost was $5.1 million, 7.5 miles. My best guess is that it would be about 3.75 mils. And the reason why I say my best guess is, you know, I calculated what the millage rate would be based upon the $5.1 million cost, but then, you know, we also have to, you know, throw in the legal and the bond fees, which get thrown into the millage rate. So it'll be up a little bit higher than what it works out to be from just 5.1 million based on our tax base. So again, to the average resident, the $67,000 resident, that's $251 per year. I did get online and or pulled up some documents from the last election. I'm just trying to find it on my computer right now. Yeah, so it, you know, in terms of the people who are either newer residents or have higher taxable value homes. You know, there were only a handful of homes that are over $130,000. Looks like about 15 in terms of taxable value. So we can pretty much safely say that pretty much everyone, with the exception of a few homes, will be paying less than $500 a year for the roads. So 251 times 2. But again, the majority of the people are going to be, you know, closer to probably 250, 300 a year. And again, we can figure all that out if we decide to go with the plan. So it's 28% of our roads. It'd be probably a 2-year project. Is that right, Scott? To do about 7.5 miles of road?
Probably 2 to 3.
Okay, so maybe a 2 to 3 year project. And again, we would have to figure out which roads. I'm not exactly quite sure how we do that, but yeah. So any thoughts on things that we might need to tweak in this plan?
I think figuring out which roads is going to be a little difficult when the ditches come into play. You're going to need a lot of Plan B roads that you're going to be able to fill in with residents that do want ditching.
I'm not following you, Scott.
So let's just say year 1 we have 2 miles of roads that we want to pave. Okay, then you go out for your residents to set up SADs. That takes a long time. That's probably a 3-month process. And then if certain streets decide they don't want to do the ditching, is the city going to pull them roads out and then have to find more roads to pave that residents want to do the ditching?
Right, but wouldn't we? I would think that we would be doing all that work the winter prior to that next spring summer's paving, right? So we could start it in you know, late fall, early winter, get through the public hearings, and then the only issue then would be is if some street did vote down their SAD.
Well, you know, you want to get the bid. I mean, we're going to want to be out to bid by February to get your best prices. January would be even better. So now you're really, I think you're starting this process in August. You know, there's a lot of design involved. There's putting bid docs together. There's figuring out what streets want to do SADs and designing all the ditching. It's a little more timely of a process.
How does it work with roads like Santa Barbara, which, you know, we just went through the water main, you know, replacement, which it tore up somewhat, and it's not a great road to begin with. Are there ditches along Santa Barbara as well that those, you know, again, those kind of cut through roads like Bloomfield or Santa Barbara?
Well, Bruce and I
just don't recall off the top of my head.
You know, Santa Barbara ditching system doesn't seem to be too bad. The city is also looking to reconstruct Santa Barbara next summer. I don't know if that'll change if the bond issue passes or not. But right now, we already have it designed for a paving project on Santa Barbara from San Jose almost up to Roseland where the concrete's bad.
Okay, all right. And I was kind of bringing that up because if we're special assessing, you know, so like my neighbors, the Denhoffs, that, you know, they're on the corner of Santa Barbara and Saratoga. So if, you know, if we're doing Santa Barbara and they're going to get special assessments on their ditches on Santa Barbara, and then Saratoga is also, you know, I don't know, but I'm just saying if that does, that's kind of a double dinger there, right, to those type of residents because they're on the corner. And
yeah, similar to the sidewalk program, you get double ding. So Scott, if this were to pass in November, I mean, I guess let's say we were going to. Well, I'm just thinking out loud here, and if we decided we were going to put this on the ballot, is it something that you know, as far as the engineering work could start right away, or you probably wouldn't want to get too far into that without knowing whether it passes, because then you're not paid for it, so that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, just thinking out loud. And then I guess one, again, just kind of thinking out loud, I guess one alternative could be that, we do the, if this passes in November, we do the Santa Barbara project as we had it scheduled, and then we start this project, because that's a pretty major project. That's 2 years worth of road money in 1 year, the way that we have it set up. And then we start then this particular project that next spring.
That would give you a lot of time to try to, get all these SADs together.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a possibility. Yeah. And then I guess Mike, I see you're talking, Mike, but you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah. So, but can't you do it later in the year even? I mean, you could probably lay asphalt into November if you had to.
You can, I'll be honest, the streets that are gonna be reconstructed, I get a little worried about doing them late in the fall, because your grade has so much clay out there. When you get rain in the fall, it doesn't dry up very well. So it's a little more difficult to pave some of them streets in the late fall. It acts like a bathtub once you rip that asphalt out and it rains. So there's maybe we could look at doing the resurfacing projects later in the fall, where you're not digging down to the aggregate, you're just taking a couple inches of asphalt off.
Right. So maybe start.
Yeah.
Start. Well, we wouldn't have any. Right. We would have rehab. We wouldn't have any resurfacing, but we could do rehab, right? Like later in the fall.
Yeah. So I think maybe the easier thing, if it does pass in November, maybe the 2021 summer is just a smaller project. Maybe it's 1.5 miles. And maybe you hit some streets where these people want ditching done, and this SAD's probably going to pass, like a Cambridge. Right.
Right. Well, right. Because you said it'd probably be a 2 to 3 year project. So if we, so maybe the way to go is we do Santa Barbara next summer as planned, and then we also do, some of the rehab roads. So we get started on this project, and then the brunt of it then comes in the next 2 years. So that would work.
It's kind of the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
If it passes in November, does that give us enough time to get it out to bid by January or February?
Depending how fast your SADs go. They take a little bit of time. You got to get your residents together to, I don't know if they put a ballot out and have to sign a ballot, and, back to council for approval, and then a public hearing. It's a little bit of a process.
Yeah.
Is there an option to maybe start the SAD process even beforehand? Like kind of maybe with the assumption that this is going to pass. I mean, does it cost us anything?
Carol's time.
That's priceless. But
yeah. So I mean, it's a good idea. So I mean, I think there's probably things that we could at least do to position ourselves so that we're running when November 3rd hits, and if it passes, we just keep sprinting. But yeah. I guess, Scott, let me ask you, how have other cities, when they've done something like this, how have they decided which roads? Because, I mean, you can imagine the controversy if we've got, if we're going to say if we've got 4 miles of road that need full reconstruction and, asphalt roads, and we say, all right, well, we're going to do 3 of them, is there a process that other cities have used, or?
I couldn't tell you. This is the second time I've done Ferndale, but we do all the roads. Ferndale's in a 10-year bond issue. We're in the middle of the 5th year right now doing every road. I really don't have a great answer for that.
Yeah, so.
There's some people that are mad that the road needs to be reconstructed and it's not going to be done.
Right. Well, I guess maybe the answer to that is, in the town halls and the communications that we have, if we decide to put this on the ballot, that, we're just very clear with people and say, look, we're going to do 7.5 miles out of 10 miles or 10, 12 miles of possible road. And you may or may not be on that one. We don't know which roads at this point, but here are, maybe we just give them here's the 12 miles of road, and I'm making that number up. It may not be 12, but here's the 12 miles of roads that are eligible. If this passes, and the committee and the council will then work on deciding which specific roads it'll be.
Maybe just a random drawing or something. And then
Yeah.
you don't have somebody saying, oh, you're on the council, that's why your road's getting done, or, you were on the committee and that's why your road's getting done.
Right.
You mean my road's not getting done? I spent all this time and my road's not getting done? No, I'm just joking.
I think we need to have like they do it with the lottery with the balls, and every street, if you've got 10 houses on the street, you get 10 balls in the in the bin. But yeah, okay, so that's something.
But it is a valid concern, right? That people will think that, but outside of doing what we proposed before, there's not, that was we'll touch every road.
Right, and that's why
they didn't want that because it costs a lot of money. I get it, but that's just, it's the luck of the draw, I guess, if you count on.
The reality is, it's no different than all of the other people, who live on roads, the 10 miles of roads that were, are in good shape. They know they're not getting anything out of it. So, a lot of those people will probably vote for something. They do get a benefit from it. I mean, obviously there are going to be some that aren't going to vote for it, and they won't get a benefit because they won't get a benefit.
But they got theirs done in the last few years, and most of us didn't. So.
Right.
Just tell people we're going to do the worst roads. I mean, we have a limited amount of roads we can do.
Well, I think that'll be the focus, right? Is just doing the worst roads for the knowledge we have at the time.
Yeah, I mean, they rely on our judgment to repair roads as they need repairing otherwise, right? So they just tell them, hey, this is a plan. It's limited. We're only doing this many miles of roads, and we're going to decide which one's the worst and which ones need repairing first.
Yeah, well, right now, Plan 2 has a lot of rehabilitation. So, it's not going to address all the streets that actually need reconstruction. It's going to need rehabilitation to try to extend the service life of them roads at a much cheaper cost.
Oh, yeah.
So I think telling the residents you're going to do the worst ones.
Okay, yeah, valid point.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's why I think it would be good if we came up with a map with, here's all the roads that would be eligible for this project. We're not saying any specific road's going to get done. It's going to be based on various conditions and so forth. But, you're eligible, so to speak. Okay. What about, so right now we have it set at 3.75 mils for a $5.1 million project. How does that number feel to everybody? I mean, there's nothing to say that we can't say, all right, well, let's, up it another $500,000 and, get another $400,000 and try to do a little bit more road. I mean, how does that number feel to you guys in terms of, what the residents would accept? Joe?
So I think that's where the residents will say, okay, here it is. That's the okey doke. Because that's not the number that was presented. And the 10 people that were there paying attention are going to be the very ones to say, that's not what was presented. What was presented is this number right here in this form, in this fashion. I'm okay with the additional $500,000. but I'm just saying be prepared for pushback.
Yeah, well, I guess my response to that would be I'm not too concerned about pushback, from people who attended the town hall, because the whole idea for the town hall was to get input into the plans. We didn't present those as here are the definitive 3 options, and we're going to choose one of these and put them on the ballot. It was like, we've got 3 plans that we've worked up, and we want to get some input so we can figure out what makes the most sense for residents. So I'm not too worried about pushback. If it was at the town halls before the election and we pulled something different, then yeah, I think people would have a right to be furious. But these were billed as a time for input. So I'm not too concerned about that.
And I think if we're kind of focusing in on Plan 2. Yeah, is that what your question was about? Throw another $500,000 on Plan 2.
Right. Well, maybe I don't know, $500,000. I mean,
No, yeah,
you guys may say $1 million. I don't know. I'm just
well, I'm just saying if you throw another $500,000 on Plan 2 and it gets more roads done, so that it's half the time, half the mill that was proposed last time. I think it's consumable for the most part. Again, given all the economic worries and all that. But so if we went from, what was it, 3.7 to like,
3.75.
yeah, to 4.5-ish, or some 4 point, somewhere in that neighborhood, we can get more roads done. That'd be good, right? I mean, it's still only 10 years, so
Right.
it's still kind of palatable for some people. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I guess my thought is I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is when I did it, I was just trying to keep it under 4, because it seems, if anything with a 3 in front of it seems better than with a 4 in front of it.
Oh yeah,
So.
I totally get it.
3.99 mils.
That's right. Play that sales game, man.
Well, I mean, we could do something like that. I mean, we could just shoot to keep it under 3 and just work backwards with the bond agents to say 3.99 mils or something, like 3.98 mils, or if you guys think that that's going from 3.75 to a quarter mil higher isn't going to dissuade people from voting for it.
I don't think so. Throw in a free set of steak knives and we got a deal. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that you have to remember, though, is that, the last millage proposal included the ditches. And so you really have to add that on top of what we're throwing out there, right?
And I'm cognizant of that when I'm trying to get to a number.
Right.
And I think, that's another thing, again, assuming we go with this plan, I think in the town halls that we do and in the literature, I think we have to be very, very clear and very specific, that, kind of like I was, at least I thought I was anyways, in the town halls, to say, the ditches will be an additional cost, to those residents. And, I threw out those 5 or 6 examples. Obviously, we'll make that chart for all streets, so everybody would be able to see, what their estimated ditch cost would be. But in most every case, I think it would still be, well, I don't want to say significantly, it'll be less than the 8.3 we were asking, previously. And I think for a very large portion of people, it'll be significantly less.
We can't give them that. We can't give them that information before the election, because we don't 100% know what roads will do.
Right. We can say, if we say, these 12 miles of roads are eligible, we can list out on all those roads.
Yeah, okay. That if you live on this road, that this would be the estimated, special assessment.
Right.
Yeah, based on what we know. I mean, there's always variables, but.
Right.
So the way, I guess, if I look at the cost on the reconstruct, the 1A was the worst of the worst, right?
I have to get the thing in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah. Where do I have that?
Scott, did you say yes?
Yeah, one B are pretty equal. The 1A is where we have to bring in new aggregate. 1B, where
So
there's
they have
a
to
lot of
eat up the
existing
concrete though,
activity
eat up the asphalt?
use.
Well, I think you might have to say that again, Scott. There was some background noise.
So 1A and 1B are both reconstruction of asphalt roads.
Okay.
The 1A is more expensive because there is no aggregate base underneath the asphalt.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So we would
I
have
even
to
asked them, could they,
remove earth and bring in new
I
aggregate.
even asked them if they could reset it, redo it for tomorrow. Like, no, we can't do it. It's
I
already
think
kind of already
Hugo
set in
might
motion.
not
I'm
be
like,
on mute and is on another
yeah,
conversation.
Yeah.
I'll mute him. I'll mute
Yeah,
him.
I was trying to do that, but yeah.
Hugo, I muted you because you were giving some background noise. I'll try unmuting you in a minute or so.
So I
yeah.
guess
So
the point I was trying to make is that it looks like the plan has 3 miles of the 1A out of the almost 4 that there is. Right?
correct. And again, the reason why and we can change this. This is I just went with the assumption that all right, well, let's focus on kind of the worst, the worst roads. But again, if the committee feels like we should divvy that up a little bit more, we can divvy it up.
Well, and I guess the point I was making is if you were to do all of that, that would add about a mil, right?
All of the 1B?
Of the worst
All of
roads.
the 1A would add another mile.
Right. So if we added an extra mile, that would be about probably about 3/4 of a mil, I think, roughly.
I mean, if you to do some horse trading, you could say, well, okay, we could add that, but and I think a lot of people say, why are we doing any gravel roads? Just drop the gravel roads off, and that's going to get you another close to $500,000 there. That could get you to almost doing all of the 1As, and then at least you could tell everybody that's a 1A that's going to be done. I don't know what you'd say for the 1Bs, but you do have, then you have 4 miles of the 1C and 4 miles of the 1A. And then I think you did say there would be, under this plan, there would be other monies for, some patchwork in the meantime, right?
Right. So after the project was completed, then we would just revert back to the same, what we do currently. We could do 0.4 miles a year or whatever it works out to be.
Now and I remember we talked about it before, it would be an average, the millage is an average millage, right? It's not going to be the same every year.
Right. Well,
at least on the old plan.
Okay. So for 2 reasons. One, so last time it was because we were going to have, it was twofold. We were going to have 3 different bonds, but even within a given bond, once we pay back some principal, there's less principal overall, so the amount of interest goes down slightly. So it would probably vary, not anywhere near what it would have varied last year, or with the November proposal, but it would vary a little bit, negligible.
Okay. I guess I was only asking that because I thought if, after 5 years it started to diminish enough, people would say, well, maybe we could go for another one after 5 or 6 years to do some more of it. That's kind of why I like the 5-year plan, because I thought, in 5 years you would see something done and it would be new enough that, you could do a renewal and say, see, we've done this, let's do a renewal and we'll keep it going every 5 years. You know what I mean? Because on the 10-year, you're going to do something, and then you're really not going to see anything for another 8 years.
Right. I get it. I mean, and I think on the flip side of that, though, is you do over 5 years, you can do only half the amount of road,
right.
And again, if I think what would happen is a lot of people would be like, oh, they're hitting us again for roads.
Well, I think we're going to anyway. It's going to be a renewal, that.
Right. So.
But it's fresh in their mind. Oh yeah, I remember we did those roads, and you could even after 4 years say, hey, let's start another one, So really, I mean, you're not stretching it out as bad as it would seem, because you're saying it's going to take a couple years before we even get going because of the, when the timing is, but. So.
Yeah, and I think if we can show progress immediately, that's a good thing, right? That
Right.
Yeah.
the residents will respond to it if we do it right, and we have a there's always going to be like naysayers, like you said, Bruce, but for the most part, I think our residents are receptive to positive movement. So.
All right. So I guess to go back to what we were talking about before, so in terms of the actual millage, like Mike suggested, possibly raising it up to, to get all 4 miles of the full 1A construction. Well, why don't I just try that? I'll between now and the next meeting, I'll just put that together and see what it'll look like. Just make some small tweaks like that and see, what that would do to the overall millage rate.
On plan 2 or?
On plan 2.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Oh, actually, let me unmute Hugo. I forgot to unmute him. I'm unmuting you, Hugo.
I'm going on at work, but
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I apologize for that. I had some stuff going on at work, but
no worries.
yeah,
I figured it sounded very similar to what we were talking about, but just not our city.
No, right.
And hence the not being able to stay in the committee because the work is following.
No. Tell me about it.
All right, so yeah, so I think this is some good progress. I think what I'll do is, like I said, come up with some tweaks so we can see some options. Maybe write up in a little more detail some of the stuff we talked about in terms of putting together charts for people to see what their estimated ditch costs would be, showing eligible, potential eligible roads. Not actually coming up with that list, but documenting the fact that that's something that we would do as part of the proposal. And I think maybe what would be good is maybe I'll send that out, and if we could maybe shoot for the next meeting, maybe trying to finalize or at least get pretty close to a final proposal, then I could start working on writing it up for council, and because obviously we're going to need to approve the write-up.
So it sounds like are we all kind of in agreement that Plan 2 is the basis for what we're doing, and then you're going to kind of tweak some numbers on getting a little bit more road work done with Plan 2?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I haven't heard anybody disagree with Plan 2.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't really think there's a whole lot, to tweak. It's just a matter of figuring out what that millage rate is. That's how high can we get it without disenfranchising the voters. But yeah, so okay. All right. Well, this was good. Anybody have any other comments? I think. Oh, actually, I have one other comment. Scott and I had a brief conversation before the meeting. The other thing that we can do, and I've mentioned this in the town halls, is that there's nothing stopping a street who has bad ditches from requesting that the city do a special assessment so that they can have their ditches fixed and replaced and pay for it over a 10-year period. So there's nothing to stop them. In fact, we have a couple streets that have actually been kind of toying with the idea. But Scott brought up a good point, is that might be something that we might want to market along with this, because if they do their ditches now, I mean, they're not going to get the total savings. Like for example, the big savings comes in the fact that they don't have to break up the driveway twice. But there are other savings in terms of mobilization. The people are out there. Engineering is already working on this stuff, so it would lower the cost. you know, for any other street that wanted to have their ditches, you know, taken care of while all the equipment was out there and so on. So that might be something that we might want to market towards the residents, you know, to say, hey, you know, your street may not be getting done, but I know a lot of you have really bad drainage issues. If you want to get your ditches done, now is the time to do it because it'll be cheaper because, you know, we can offer it at a lower rate because, you know, we have all the equipment out here and so on. So that was a good point that Scott
You're
brought.
talking about if a block gets together and says, hey, we you know, and all agree that we want to do a special assessment, that they kind of get prioritized and get their road done. Is that what you're?
No, I'm not, this is independent of the road. So,
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so you know, one of the, I guess the negatives of Plan 2 is that only 28% of the ditches, you know, will get done, you know, 7.5 miles. So you've got 75% of the people who don't get new roads, but of those 75%, some of them have got horrendous ditches, and if they have the opportunity to do a special assessment and decide that amongst themselves on the block, the city block, they could do it at a slightly lower cost than if we weren't.
Because we have the crews and the gear out there and everything. You know. Okay. All right.
Exactly. Because part of what goes into the, you know, the fees for any of these big projects like this, and Scott could talk more about it if necessary, is the mobilization fee. You know, it's a cost for bringing all that equipment out.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, totally get it. No, that's a good. I think it's a good thing. This to kind of reiterate that if your road doesn't necessarily qualify for Plan X, whatever it is, that
Right.
this is a good thing, and it would lower the cost on you having that work done. So.
And Cheryl, I see a little recording thing blinking on here. We're recording this, right? Because I probably should have been taking more detailed notes than what I've been doing. Okay. All right. So anybody else have any other thoughts or? All right. This was good. I think we made some significant progress, so that's good. Yeah, I'll be working on some of this stuff and get some stuff out to you. What about next meeting? Could we do? Today's the 10th, right? Could we do the 24th of June?
Let me look.
Anybody have a problem with June 24th?
I think at this point it's okay, but we were talking about maybe going up north later in the month, but I'm not sure when. So for now, I mean, I could always call in from there.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we'll plan on the 24th. Maybe even in person. I suggested to Cheryl that we do this meeting on my back deck a couple days ago, and safely social distance. But I looked at the weather report and I was like, nope, I'm not even going to suggest it. So,
well, what if all the residents show up though, Bruce?
Well, we may not have done it as a public. We've done all of our meetings as public meetings, but we technically were not required to do it because we're a committee and we're not a public body. So, you know,
in theory, we could always do this in the community room, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
I mean, so there's plenty. I mean, even if people want to show up and give input, I mean, that's a ton of space in there. So.
Yeah. So, okay, I will get that on there. If there's nothing else.